The first bang on my door hit like a sledgehammer at midnight, rattling the frame so hard I thought someone was trying to break in. I jolted upright, heart pounding, hand already hovering over the panic button under my desk. One press and 3 blacked-out vans full of DEA agents would roll into this sleepy cul-de-sac like a tactical 4th of July. The second bang knocked a picture off the wall, a cheap frame I'd hung to sell my cover as a boring freelance consultant. By the third, I was halfway to the door, adrenaline screaming, ready to deal with cartel goons or a rogue snitch. But when I yanked it open, I didn't find hitmen or informants. I found HOA security guards. 3 of them, standing there like they'd just caught me red-handed in a suburban crime spree. Let me back up. I'm a DEA agent, 8 years deep in undercover work, currently posing as a nobody in khakis who loves gardening and model trains. This neighborhood was my stage for a sting I'd been building for weeks, blending in so well even the nosiest neighbors bought it. That night, everything was lined up until these clowns showed up. Picture this. The guy in the middle, mid-50s, buzz cut, wearing a tactical vest 2 sizes too small, gripping a flashlight like he's about to interrogate a terrorist. To his left, a twitchy dude with his hand on a stun gun, looking like he'd watched too many cowboy movies. On the right, a gum-chewing wannabe glaring at my porch camera like it owed him money. These weren't cops. They were glorified rent-a-cops in golf carts, armed with clipboards and a delusion of grandeur. "Sir," Buzzcut growled, voice all gravel like he'd practiced it in the mirror, "we've received reports of unusual electrical activity in your residence. We're conducting a security sweep per HOA Code 7-14C. I blinked. At midnight, I asked deadpan, "You guys always do your sweeps during REM cycles?" He didn't laugh. Stun gun shifted his weight, itching to draw. Gum chewer just kept chewing, staring. I wanted to laugh or slam the door, but behind them, 2 houses down, a black Escalade with tinted windows peeled away from the curb. My stomach dropped. That was my target, a cartel courier I'd been tracking for 3 months, and these idiots had just spooked him. Here's the kicker. I couldn't tell them who I was. One word about being a federal agent, and my cover, weeks of playing Mr. Nice Neighbor, would be toast. So I stood there, silent, while Buzzcut puffed up like a mall cop on a power trip. "Do you mind if we come in for a quick inspection?" he asked, peering past me. I laughed, louder than I meant to. "Absolutely, I mind," I shot back. "This is private property. You've got no jurisdiction here." He bristled. "The HOA charter allows emergency inspections for suspected hazardous material use." I almost choked. Hazardous materials? My garage was full of surveillance gear, sure, but it wasn't a meth lab. These guys were so far out of their depth, they were drowning in their own khakis. I took a breath, fighting the urge to flash my badge and slap them with obstruction charges. Instead, I leaned into the clueless neighbor act. "Oh wow, hazardous materials? Like Christmas lights?" Buzzcut muttered something about a grow operation, which would have been hilarious if it wasn't so dangerously wrong. Then I heard it, a soft chirp from upstairs. My motion sensors. Either my cat was prowling or the surveillance drone I'd forgotten to power down was hovering. "Perfect. Look," I said, stepping forward to hurry them back. "You've got 30 seconds to get off my porch before this becomes a legal issue. You're not cops. You're rent-a-cops in khakis." That hit a nerve. Buzzcut squared his shoulders. "This is an official HOA action. Refusal to comply will be reported and fined." I grinned, showing teeth. "Great. I'll frame the paperwork next to my federal credentials." Then I slammed the door. Not hard, just firm enough to make them flinch. I sprinted upstairs, yanked open my closet, and found the drone mid-hover, its red light blinking like a guilty kid caught sneaking cookies. I cursed, grabbed the remote, and guided it back into its case. My earpiece crackled. HQ panicked. Target lost visual. They're gone. I slammed the case shut. 8 years of work, a multi-million-dollar sting, flushed because 3 HOA vigilantes thought my garage lights were a crime scene. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a screw-up. It was the start of something way uglier. So there I was, staring at a locked drone case, my earpiece buzzing with HQ's frantic target lost chatter and the weight of a botched sting crashing down like a bad hangover. Let me fill you in on what those HOA clowns interrupted. 2 houses down, that black Escalade wasn't just some late-night Uber. It was my golden ticket. Inside was a cartel courier we'd been tailing for 3 months, a slippery little fish in a big pond of drug trafficking. I'd spent weeks setting up this sting, living in this cookie-cutter neighborhood as a fake consultant with a fake life, all to catch this guy in the act. Tonight was the night. A handoff of a new synthetic compound headed for the East Coast market. One clean bust, and we'd have evidence to dismantle a whole distribution route. Overdoses would drop, lives would be saved, and I'd get a rare pat on the back from HQ. Instead, I got golf cart vigilantes. Here's how it was supposed to go. I had live feeds running through a custom server in my garage, cameras, mics, the works, tracking that Escalade. The courier was parked, waiting for my signal to move, which I'd give once I confirmed the drop. But the second I opened the door to deal with Buzzcut and his posse waving flashlights like they were auditioning for CSI, my tech flipped into safety mode. Auto shutdown protocol, standard for undercover ops. No more video, no more audio, no more evidence. By the time I'd shooed them off my porch, the Escalade was gone, taillights fading into the night. 3 months of work, poof, because the HOA thought I was growing weed under grow lights instead of running a federal operation. Back on the porch, I kept it cool, barely. Buzzcut was still yammering about hazardous materials, like my encrypted monitors were a hazmat spill waiting to happen. "Sir," he'd said, squinting past me, "we need to ensure community safety." I'd smirked. Community safety? You just woke up half the block over some extension cords. Stun gun's hand twitched toward his holster. Dude, it's a stun gun, not a 6-shooter, and gum chewer spat his gum onto my lawn like a petty gangster. I wanted to arrest them right there, cite Title 18 obstruction of justice, and watch their faces drop. But blowing my cover wasn't an option. Not yet. So I played dumb. Grow operation? Man, I wish I had the thumbs for that. My plants die if I look at them funny. They didn't buy it, but they didn't have the guts, or the warrant, to push harder. Then came the upstairs chirp. I'd brushed it off as my cat, Milo, knocking over a lamp, but as I bolted up the stairs post-door slam, I knew better. The drone was hovering, a sleek little spy I'd forgotten to ground before answering the door. Its red light blinked like it was mocking me, caught in the act by my own tech. I snatched the remote, landed it, and stuffed it back in its case, cursing under my breath. That's when HQ chimed in. Target's gone. Visual lost 47 seconds after initial disturbance. 47 seconds. That's all it took for the HOA to tank everything. The courier must have clocked the flashlight show and bolted, smart enough to know something was off, even if it was just suburban nonsense. I paced downstairs, heart thumping, trying to piece together the damage. My monitors were flashing yellow. Recording ceased, tracking lost, operation compromised. The sting was dead, and worse, that synthetic compound was now loose. If it hit the streets, overdoses would spike, and we'd be playing catch-up for months. All because 3 clipboard warriors thought my garage was a security threat. I leaned against the doorway, replaying the night, when something caught my eye. Across the street, behind a privacy hedge, a figure stood stock still, a man in a dark hoodie, not HOA, not a neighbor. He watched me, unblinking, then melted back into the shadows like a ghost. My gut twisted. That wasn't random. Someone else was in play, and I didn't know if they were hunting me or just watching the chaos unfold. I grabbed the notice they'd slapped on my mailbox. $600 fine for excessive lighting and suspicious equipment use. Pay in 10 days or face a board hearing. I laughed a sharp, bitter sound because if I didn't, I'd lose it. This wasn't just a busted sting anymore. It was a hunt, and I wasn't sure who was the predator. The HOA had no idea they just stepped into a war zone, and I had no idea how deep their meddling would drag me. But one thing was clear, this quiet little neighborhood wasn't so quiet anymore, and I was in way over my head. The next morning didn't bring coffee and calm. It brought another HOA notice, this time slapped on my garage door like a passive-aggressive post-it. I waited till the footsteps faded, then peeled it off. Non-regulated antenna equipment observed on roof. Possible FAA violation. Immediate removal required. Fine pending. I blinked at the paper. FAA violation? My rooftop surveillance relay was disguised as a weather sensor. Legal, untraceable, hidden in plain sight. These jokers were now citing federal aviation regs like they'd graduated from Google Law School. It'd be funny if it hadn't just cost me a multi-million-dollar sting. I poured a coffee that tasted like regret and stared out the window at what should have been a quiet cul-de-sac. That's when Paul strutted by, self-proclaimed director of HOA security, a guy who wore sunglasses indoors and swore he'd worked private detail in Panama. I figure it was guarding pool noodles, given his vibe. He had a clipboard under one arm, a walkie-talkie in the other, and a smirk that screamed, "I'm basically Delta Force." He stopped at my mailbox, peered at it like it held state secrets, then snapped a pic of my siding before sauntering off. He didn't see me watching through the blinds. Guy didn't see much of anything except chances to flex his fake authority. I spent the morning salvaging what I could from last night's wreckage. Most of my feeds cut the second those HOA amateurs showed up, 47 seconds from first knock to the Escalade peeling out. Too precise to be random. Either the cartel had eyes on me, or the neighborhood circus spooked them by dumb luck. Either way, the sting was toast. I encrypted the scraps of data and fired off a classified debrief to HQ, then leaned back, replaying Paul's smug little walk. Something was off. This wasn't just petty HOA nonsense. This was overreach with a purpose. That afternoon, my neighbor Mrs. Pennington shuffled over with a tray of muffins and a look that said she'd seen some shit. She's a retired schoolteacher, sweet but sharp, the kind who knows everyone's dirt. "You all right, dear?" she asked, handing me the tray. "Saw those Rena stormtroopers banging on your door last night. Thought we were about to get Waco'd." I chuckled, more stress than humor. They said I had suspicious lights. Guess reading lamps are a felony now. She narrowed her eyes. They've been sniffing around all week. Paul's got this little watch club. Calls it Patriot Watch or some nonsense. They're monitoring subversive behaviors. I told him the only subversive thing here is his hairline. Patriot Watch. That wasn't on the HOA website. No meeting notes, no official record. An unofficial posse playing neighborhood cop, armed with flashlights and delusions. Mrs. Pennington kept going. They're out there with radios, taking pics of garages, eyeing folks' trash bins. Paul thinks he's saving us from commies or something. She paused, muffin tray wobbling. "You be careful. They're not just nosy, they're trouble." I thanked her, took a muffin, and watched her shuffle back. Trouble was right. These weren't just busybodies, they were profiling me, and I was the target. I dug into Paul's file using DEA resources. No military record, no cop creds, but a juicy nugget. A few years back, he ran a community safety initiative in Arizona, shut down after complaints of racial profiling and illegal searches. He bolted here, joined the HOA, and climbed to the board fast. Then came the badges, the midnight patrols, the radios, a pattern of a guy who craved power he'd never earned. This wasn't just a bored dude with a complex. This was someone who'd push until he broke something or someone. By evening, the fines were piling up, $600 for lights. Now, this FAA crap. I logged everything, knowing I couldn't fight back openly without tipping my hand. My cover was shaky, weeks of blending in, ruined by one night of HOA idiocy. Worse, that shadow from last night stuck in my head. Who was that hoodie guy? Cartel? Neighbor? Something worse? I powered up my backup drone and peeked at the footage from last night's chaos. There they were, buzz cut, stun gun, and gum chewer waddling off my driveway like they'd save the world. Paul wasn't there, but his fingerprints were all over it. Then I saw it. Gum chewer snapping a pic of my house, Buzzcut slapping that first notice on my mailbox. A paper trail. If they filed this with the board, someone might start asking questions. Questions I couldn't answer without outing myself. My earpiece buzzed. HQ checking in. "Lay low," they said. "Regroup. Lay low." These clowns were turning my sting into a circus, and I was the main act. I tossed the FAA notice in a drawer and grabbed another muffin. Mrs. Pennington was right. They weren't just annoying. They were dangerous, and I had to figure out how deep this rabbit hole went before they dragged me down it. Paul was officially on my radar, and not just because he strutted around like a budget action hero. After Mrs. Pennington's Patriot Watch tip, I went full DEA mode, quietly of course. I couldn't exactly storm the HOA office with a warrant, but I could dig. First stop, Paul's file, deeper than the surface skim. Arizona wasn't just a blip. Residents there had sued him for harassment, claiming he'd peeked in windows and searched trash without cause. No charges stuck, but the pattern was clear. He loved playing cop without the badge. Here, he'd fast-tracked to HOA security director in months, turning a sleepy board into his personal militia. That wasn't boredom. That was obsession. I flipped my surveillance game. The cartel was on hold. Raphael's courier had vanished, and HQ was still licking wounds. So I aimed my cameras and drones at the HOA. Night 1. Footage of Paul and his crew patrolling, lingering outside homes, snapping pics of garages. My place got extra love. 3 stops in 2 hours. Night 2. Buzzcut lifted my trash bin lid, pretending to tie his shoe. Classy. They weren't checking lawn heights or noise complaints. They were casing, building profiles. Untrained, unsupervised, and convinced they were heroes. If they stumbled on my gear, they'd blow my op wide open or tip off the wrong people. Then the mail hit. Morning 3, I checked my mailbox. Nothing fancy, just bills and junk. Except one envelope was missing. A utilities bill with a folded DEA pamphlet inside, misrouted from HQ about a quarterly debrief. Harmless to most, but to a snoop? A neon sign screaming Fed. No forced entry, no tampering marks, just gone. That's when clicked, they'd open my mailbox. Federal crime. 18 U.S.C. Section 1708. Mail theft. 6 months in jail per count if I pressed it. They didn't know they just stepped into felony territory, but I did. Problem was, pressing charges meant outing myself, and I wasn't ready to trade my cover for a petty win. I called HQ, voice low, pacing my kitchen. We got a problem. The HOA's not just nosy. They're in my mail, maybe onto me. I need extraction for the gear, a new command node. My handler sighed. You sure this isn't paranoia? It's an HOA, not the cartel. I bit back a laugh. They interrupted a sting, stole federal mail, and they're profiling me. This isn't about lawnmowers. It's escalating. He paused. No extraction yet. Too hot after last night. Lay low, gather intel. Lay low. Paul was out there playing Homeland Security with a clipboard, and I was supposed to sip tea and wait? I hung up, fuming. HQ didn't get it. This wasn't just a hiccup. My monitors still blinked yellow. My drone footage showed Paul's crew circling like vultures, and that missing pamphlet gnawed at me. If they'd read it, they'd have questions. If they passed it on, someone else might. I reran the trash bin clip. Buzzcut's fake shoelace tie was sloppy, deliberate. Then I spotted Paul in the background, radio in hand, barking orders. He wasn't just a grunt. He was running this show. I pulled his HOA patrol logs. Unofficial, scribbled notes from a leaked forum. My name popped up. Unusual electrical activity, nighttime movements. They weren't guessing. They were watching. I stepped outside, casual as hell, watering my fake garden while scanning the street. Paul rolled by in a golf cart, sunglasses on, nodding like he owned the block. I waved, all smiles, and he waved back. Too slow, too smug. My gut said he knew more than he let on. Back inside, I checked my drone's motion logs. Upstairs chirps every night since the knock. Not Milo. Something or someone triggered it. I swept the house, found nothing, but the unease stuck. The hoodie guy from night 1 flashed in my mind. Cartel? HOA? Both? I had to act. I rigged a backup server in my attic, masking signals through a VPN so tight even HQ couldn't trace it. If Paul's crew tripped over my op again, I'd have proof and leverage. But leverage for what? They weren't just a nuisance. They were a threat, and I was alone. HQ wouldn't move. The cartel was spooked, and my cover hung by a thread. I grabbed a beer, stared at the fines piling up, $600 now pending for the roof, and laughed. Not because it was funny, but because if I didn't, I'd punch a wall. These idiots had no idea who they were messing with, but I was starting to wonder if I'd underestimated them too. Day 4 hit me with a tow truck backing into my driveway like it owned the place. I just brewed coffee when I heard the beep beep beep, peeked out, and saw Ridge Plumbing Services decals on the side. Looked legit, city plates, magnetic signs, but I knew better. That was my surveillance van, parked legally, no tags, just a shell job blending in. I bolted outside, mug in hand, as the driver hooked it up. Paul stood nearby, arms crossed, smirking like he'd just busted James Bond. "Morning, Paul," I said, casual but sharp. "What's this about?" He adjusted his sunglasses. "Received reports of an abandoned work vehicle. Gave it 24 hours. Bullshit. It had been there since midnight. I had timestamps. Abandoned. I pulled out my phone, hit record. It's registered, parked legally. You're fabricating this." His eyes narrowed. "It's unregistered. Poses a community threat." Then he dropped the bomb. "Your van was seen making a stop at 2238 Wisteria, wasn't it?" I froze. 2238 Wisteria, stash house, last drop point for Mark Bills. Only my team and the cartel knew that address. Paul shouldn't. I kept my face blank. "Wisteria? Never heard of it. You towing random vans now?" He doubled down. "We're protecting the neighborhood." I stepped closer. "You're trespassing on private property. That's a tow without cause, civil violation, maybe criminal if I push it." The driver hesitated. Paul waved him on. "I'll let it go for now." The van was rigged. If they touched the wrong panel, a GPS ping would hit my phone. Game on. Back inside, I dug into Patriot Watch. Their forum, poorly encrypted amateur hour, showed they'd tripled in size. Retirees and Paul types, power-hungry nobodies logging Amazon deliveries, measuring grass. My name popped up twice. Unusual electrical activity and nighttime movements inconsistent with residents' cover story. Cover story. Not job, not hobby, cover story. They suspected I wasn't who I said I was. Lucky guess, or did someone tip them? My skin crawled. Then the real gut punch. My decoy flash drive was gone. Dummy DEA ledgers, Dr. Comms, locked in a false panel in my office. I'd moved it to a drawer under books after the mail theft, but that morning, it vanished. No break-in, no alarms, just gone. Someone been in my house, knew what to look for. I scanned nearby devices, pinged the USB signature. Hit. A device linked to Karen, HOA president. Not Paul, Karen. Shit just got real. I reviewed footage. Karen at the midnight knock, late, in heels and a silk robe, barking at Paul like a drill sergeant. I thought it was ego. Now it felt staged. She wasn't reacting. She was directing. Paul's wisteria slip, the forum suspicions, the flash drive. Someone was feeding them intel, and Karen was in deep. I leaned back, coffee cold, mind racing. The tow was a test. Push me, see if I crack. The flash drive was leverage. They didn't know I was DEA, but they knew I wasn't just a consultant. And I didn't know how long I could keep this dance going before it all blew up. Karen wasn't just the HOA president. She was a player, and I'd underestimated her. After the flash drive pinged to her device, I bugged their office. Late night, jogger disguise, I dropped a military-grade contact mic into the admin building's vent, silent, undetectable. Next morning, jackpot. Karen whispering to Raphael. Not HOA Raphael. Cartel Raphael, low-level logistics, dirty work guy. "He moved it," she hissed. "Gear's not there anymore, but I'm checking the files. Give me one day." Fear in her voice, not bureaucracy. "Then, if we can't get more intel, we'll plant it. Let him take the fall. Plant it. Frame me." My blood ran cold. The mailbox theft, the tow attempt, the flash drive, they weren't just poking, they were building a trap. Violation notices escalated. Inside my mailbox now, a federal crime, they flaunted unlicensed electronics with harmful emissions. Googled spy gear nonsense, but dangerous if they sold it to the right people. I called Karen, requested a board meeting to clear it up. She declined, curt. 2 hours later, an email. Per Section 14, we reserve the right to inspect for community safety. Refusal documented. They were boxing me in. Paul up the ante. Day 5, he walked past, holding my flash drive like a trophy, smirking, taunting me. I couldn't react. Any slip, and my cover was ash. But this wasn't just HOA pettiness anymore. Karen's Raphael, Link tied it to the cartel. Was she a mole? A pawn? I called HQ. Back up now. They're framing me, tied to the target. They balked. Paranoia, maybe? It's an HOA. I snapped. They've got my drive, cartel contacts, and a plan to plant evidence. Send help, or the cartel won't need to kill me. This neighborhood will. They hesitated. I hung up, fuming. I moved my gear to Todd's pool house. 5 doors down, a favor from an El Paso sting. No questions, just keys and a fridge. I rerouted feeds, mass signals. If Karen wanted shadows, I'd give her ghosts. But Paul's taunt stuck. He knew I couldn't touch him. Not yet. This was personal now, and I was one wrong move from losing everything. Karen threw a curveball, a charity gala in her backyard last minute. No press. Red flags everywhere. She didn't do parties, she did fines. I ran facial rec on the guests, 3 tied to Raphael. This was a cartel meet, not a fundraiser. I crashed it, polo and khakis, name tag, Gregory, parking committee. Clipboard in hand, I slipped past the valet, blending in. String lights, fake ivy, champagne, Karen in a sequin blazer, all teeth, hosting like a reality TV star. I trailed servers, clocked Paul handing my flash drive to Marco Sandoval, Raphael's logistics guy, in plain sight. Brown envelope back. Deal done under jazz and lanterns. Then a sun hat lady near the wine adjusted a dial. DEA tech. Backup. I whispered. You late, or am I early? She didn't flinch. 7 hours late. Boss said you'd be dramatic. I grinned. We were in sync. I triggered burst mode on my bugs. Data to HQ. Real time. Karen greeted Marco. Fake laugh, dripping venom. She was the linchpin. Plan set, but I needed more. Until Karen's mic gave it away. A server spilled a drink. Exposed her lapel mic. She panicked, shouted Plan B. Too late. We had her. Fireworks boomed. Perfect cover. Lights flickered. My rig rebooted. Marco bolted with the pouch. But the bugs caught it all. Karen's mic synced to the cloud, nailing her with Raphael. DEA stormed in, low weapons. Music cut. Marco tackled mid-sprint. Paul disarmed by sun hat Cassandra. Karen screaming entrapment in cuffs. Guests froze. Press swarmed. My cover half blown, but irrelevant. Sting done. Later, Karen hissed. You set me up. I shrugged. You did that yourself. I just brought snacks. Raphael's postcard slid under my door. See you soon. Game wasn't over. Debrief. Marco cracked, linked routes. Karen's mic gave warrants. Cartel's network shook. Neighborhood reeled. HOA a crime scene. Board quit. I got interim HOA duty, banned late sweeps, protected mailboxes. Paul confessed. Raphael's pawn via forum. Small favors turned big. Karen's poodle chip, rant flopped, viral, but she's toast. Raphael's out there, but we've got leverage. Brutus, my K9 retiree, got elected HOA president. Sash barbecue, no fines. Neighborhood healed. Kids biked, casseroles arrived. Raphael's postcard made it personal. I'm ready. I stayed, beer in hand, rewriting bylaws, waiting. Stand up for your space, I'd say. Sting's done, but the hunt's just begun.